Welcome to the Prepper Report. This is the nation's only show that is specifically geared to emergency preparedness. And we're here today with a wonderful guest who decided to visit us on a last-minute basis. I really appreciate that. Bill, this is Bill Chessman, and I thank you for coming in today.
Thanks, Josh. It's nice to be here with you this afternoon.
Bill is a gun expert, or I should say firearm. He is an NRA training counselor, and that means that he's the one that teaches instructors how to instruct. I'm a certified firearms instructor. He's the one who's taught me, and I appreciate, again, you coming in such short notice.
Well, it's nice to be here today, and it's an honor to have you invite me down to speak with you this morning on preparedness with firearms.
Well, you know, our general gist of our show has to do with natural disasters, preparedness. Obviously, security is a big factor when it comes to a natural disaster. Clearly, firearms are important every day of the year, you know, even without natural disasters, and we'll discuss exactly how that, how the laws and regulations and different aspects of that. But when it comes to a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, guns take a significant role because at that point, dealing with a person's personal responsibility, it's necessary to take that into your own hands. Often, the normal emergency services, whether it be the police, the fire, the ambulance services, they will be either not online or they will be swamped with calls and may not be there. Even today, if you call 911, there's no guarantee that the police are going to show up within a certain amount of time. They may be there, you know, if they show up at all, they may show up 20 minutes late, half an hour later. And if you're having something like a home invasion, you know, that you can't wait a half an hour. So being able to respond to that on, you know, personal responsibility for yourself, for your family, and security and gun ownership is a very important role, takes a very important role there. Let's start with an introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Bill.
Well, I've been an educator all my life. I was an educator in Wilkinsburg School District for 35 years, as a guidance counselor and just about everything else. I became an NRA instructor early on in the 70s. And have taught most of the NRA disciplines, becoming an NRA training counselor, which is a person, as you had mentioned earlier, teaches people how to teach the various NRA disciplines. I became a counselor probably in the early, I would say, late 90s. So I've been teaching all my life, and this was just a natural progression and a way to talk about our rights and spread the word to the citizenry.
Well, that's a great segue. As far as rights are concerned, we were discussing a little bit before the show, the United States of America is very unique in their constitutional right to bear arms. Tell us about why you think the United States is different than most other countries out there.
Well, I think it falls back on our founding fathers and the situations that brought people to this continent. Most of us, our ancestors came for various reasons, probably to get away from the oppressions of Europe and other parts of the world. And coming over here, realizing that this was a new frontier, a new area. The use of firearms was used primarily to provide food and protection from anything that could cause danger to them. So it was a natural evolvement, and I'm so thankful that when they were doing the hard work of putting this country together, that they realized that there are certain inalienable rights that we have all been endowed with, and among those the Second Amendment, which is probably the cornerstone of the rest of our freedoms. Now,
the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, has recently affirmed gun ownership as an individual right. Do you want to speak to that a little bit and how that affects our rights here in the country?
Well, I think, you know, again, with rights always do come responsibilities. I think the Constitution outlines that very clearly. The owner of a firearm isn't something that just allows you to just go out and brandish and do things that are not safe. If you own a firearm, you need to be educated and smart enough to realize that you have a big responsibility on your hands. This country is founded on responsibility, and I think that the Supreme Court saw that in its decisions, and we'll continue to see that in the future.
Right. As an individual right, what I mean by that is that the Constitution speaks about it being the right to bear arms and to have a militia, and it was never clearly defined whether those two things were connected, whether it was to bear arms in order to have a militia, which were basically groups of people that would band together in different states in order to try to protect the national security of the country, or whether it meant that every individual has an individual right to bear arms to protect themselves and their families, irregardless of the militia concept.
I think the militia concept came in at the time when, you know, we talked about the Minuteman, the farmer, the agrarian society we lived in, and those people became a militia, which was an organized group, but they had the freedom to own those firearms prior to that. Their training, their experience certainly came to fruition at Concord, Lexington Concord, and the things that happened there. The Supreme Court has the job of determining that and making sure that the way the Constitution was written is continued and defined as such.
So you spoke about responsibility. Here in Pennsylvania, we have some unique law. I don't know if they're unique, but let's take a step back. There is no national law as far as gun ownership, concealed carry, as far as reciprocity between different states when you cross state lines. Every state determines for their own citizenry what they want, what the laws are. So here in Pennsylvania, we have, you know, obviously different laws than even our neighboring states when you cross over to Ohio, West Virginia. Clearly, if you go to what are known as unfriendly gun places like New Jersey and New York, Illinois, they have very different laws than we would have here in the state of Pennsylvania, especially under our new governor. We have the Castle Doctrine. Let's try to bring some of those points out.
Well, Pennsylvania, we are blessed with a government that kind of trusts its citizenry to own firearms and have them. And in fact, in our state, to get a carry permit for concealed carry, which is different from open carry, primarily you have to get the forms filled out and be checked out by the local sheriffs. And you can, if you're a citizen of good repute, you're entitled to own and carry a firearm concealed. There are open carry laws in the state and throughout the country, and each state mandates those differently, slightly different. You have to follow their rules, and no matter what jurisdiction you're in. Concealed carry is a very big responsibility. To carry a gun, you need to be very much aware of what the laws are and where you're at. There are restrictions on concealed carry, as there are with any other kind of laws that we have. You, as a citizen, need to be totally aware of what they are. You know, you can't carry a firearm into a school or a public building or the airports. There are laws that require that you do not go in there if you have a concealed carry permit. You can get yourself into a lot of difficulty. You must be abundantly clear on what the laws are and what your responsibilities are. Open carry, most people can open carry. You don't need a permit for that. But again, there are restrictions to it. Open carry, that's up to the individual to decide whether they want to do that or not. I always considered it a person's okay to do that, but if I was a bad guy, the person that I can see carrying a gun openly would be the person I would go after first. If I was a criminal intent on causing harm to people in society, the open carry person would be the one I would be looking at. Because I know that they have a gun. It's the concealed people that really are much more important in terms of protecting yourself, being prepared for situations, be it disasters or some deranged individual taking control of a situation, and so that you can be prepared to deal with that.
So the idea is that if you're just happen to be in a bank and there's a bank robbery, my suggestion would be just to try to stay out of it, because there's no reason to risk your life. Unless your life is threatened, and we'll obviously get to those kind of points.
Sure.
But the idea is that if you're open carry, then obviously you're going to be seen as a threat, and they're going to try to neutralize that threat first, so you're going to be a target.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly the individual's responsibility to decide whether they want to open carry or not, and if that's what you want to do, I don't have any difficulty with that. But again,
the exception to the rule is Philadelphia.
Well, I don't know that Philadelphia, there are certain rules and regulations. It depends on where you are.
Right?
Because
I believe in the city limits of Philadelphia, you have to have a concealed carry permit in order to open carry, which is a funny thing in the law. I don't exactly understand how they do that.
I'm not a lawyer either, so I would defer to the laws. You can go on computer and find out what the laws are in specific areas so that you're not caught in a situation that you don't want to be caught in. You certainly don't want to. You don't want to make people afraid. On the other hand, you want to be prepared and protect yourself for the situation. So I would agree with you. Go find out what the law is where you're going. If you're going into Philadelphia, you better be clear on the law.
Right. Now, and the responsibility of owning a gun, of carrying a gun, goes much further than just knowing the laws and even being trained to use the gun. You have to be aware, as we discussed many times before, you have to be aware that when you decide to pull that gun, and it cannot be pulled as a
lot
threat,
of things come into play.
a lot of things come into play, and even if you're 100% right
Justified.
and justified in doing so, you still can feel the brunt of that for many years to come.
As we discussed that, heaven forbid you ever have to use your firearm, but if you do, you need to be of the mindset that I need to do that. And the old cliche, it's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6, that comes into play. But you need to be totally sure what you're doing, and you don't need to be guessing. And the time comes that you have to use deadly force, if that's what it has to be. You need to be of the mindset that that's where I'm going and that's what I'm going to do. But you also have to realize that even though it may be justified, there's this deranged person in your bedroom coming at you with an axe, and you have to use deadly force. There are things that come into play. You have your own mindset. You have to think about, what do I do next? You need to probably realize that it's going to cost you $30,000 or $40,000 to get a good lawyer to protect your rights. You have to realize that in a situation like this, you may not want to say too much because you may say things that you don't mean to say. The police are your allies in the situation, but you must realize what your rights are, and you don't have to say more than you need to say. So this is where you need a good, think about using a good lawyer as a backup situation. And I said if you do use deadly force, even though it's justified, there are some things that come into play, and the cost is one of the factors you need to think about. Is that somebody's in your house stealing your widescreen TV? Is it really worth going down there and using deadly force? You need to weigh these things out. This is an individual right, but it's also an individual decision, and you have to decide when you're preparing to use firearms what you're going to do.
And obviously, adrenaline takes a very key role. I don't care if you're Joe Schmo on the street or if you happen to be G.I. Joe. You're Mr. Special Forces,
Navy SEAL,
Recon Navy SEAL, or you're the police officer with 30 years of experience under his belt. When you have to pull a gun on somebody, there is definitely going to be a surge of adrenaline, and it's going to affect not only the way that you react and you use that firearm, but it's also going to affect the way, as you've mentioned, you're going to speak to people afterwards, and your confusion and how you're going to describe what, with all that adrenaline in your body, that chemical affects the way that you're going to speak and the way that you're going to remember things.
Sort of like being on a TV program you just found out you were going to be on.
Exactly.
What are you going to say? And you don't want to flub it up, but you don't want to be ill-prepared also. Practice. You need to be familiar with the firearm that you're using. You need to be aware of the laws. You can't chase people, you can't brandish, you can't do these different kinds of things with a firearm. That's not what it's for. You really don't want people to know you have that firearm on you. So you're absolutely right. There are so many things that we do. It's always the fight-flight syndrome, which is better? If I flee the situation, or do I have to stay and fight? And we're, through history, as a creature, we have those things built within us, and people deal with things, and fortunately it doesn't come up all the time, but people deal with stuff as it evolves in front of them. So practice. If you're going to use a firearm, you need to get out and practice shooting it. You need to know all the things that can happen. You need to be safe with it. You need to take, I probably would agree that you probably need to take some courses too, just so that you know what your responsibilities and laws are.
I would be remiss if I didn't discuss a little bit the concept of, well, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this, but the concept of the faulty logic of gun control. And why, people, there are many people out there They've never owned a gun. They've never seen a gun. You know, in the movies, they may have been introduced to guns, but they've been sort of brainwashed into thinking that guns are a bad thing. Bad people have guns. No normal law-abiding citizen is going to need to ever have a gun. Yeah. And they've created these things called gun-free zones, which I believe there's a faulty logic in having a gun-free zone, because it basically is an invitation for a criminal to come in and do something, and knowing that he's not going to be threatened, there's not going to be a response because there's no guns in that area. Maybe you want to discuss a little bit this concept of guns. Are guns bad things? Are they good things? Are they a tool that could be used either way?
It's sort of, I guess it becomes ingrained as even little children. You see a movie and the bad guy has the gun. You know, we don't see guns being used for positive uses. It's usually in an ill light, or there are some kind of, in the media, or not necessarily in the media so much, but in movies. You know, we wouldn't have movies without guns. The firearm is an important part in it, but it is played in unfortunately more often than not, a sinister role, and that is a difficult situation. Fortunately for me, I grew up with a gentleman, my dad, who had firearms. He was an old Navy destroyer guy, and he was, you know, I was always around firearms. I mentioned this to you earlier, a good friend who is from China. I was at dinner with her the other night, and she mentioned that when she was in school in China, at a very early age, the children had to learn how to shoot a .22 in school. You know, we don't do this so much in schools anymore. We had rifle teams. Woodland Hills has an excellent rifle team. But it's one of the few that I'm aware of in Pennsylvania. They used to be more common. Like any other tool, a firearm can be used for good. Like any other device that we use, it can certainly provide us with a lifetime of skill development, relaxation, fun, recreation. I mean, I've taught thousands of young people, hunter education classes and pistol classes and rifle classes, NRA classes. The fun and enjoyment of competitive shooting, be it trap shooting or pistol shooting, or just going out and plinking at tin cans. It's a recreational way of life that you can use your entire lifetime. It's unfortunate that the guns in our society, where we have that right, it's unfortunate that it's played down so much in a negative light. And it's, you know, I think of the places around the world. I think of Germany in prior to the Second World War, how guns were confiscated from the citizenry. Other countries, Israel, China, Switzerland are about the only three countries I can think of in the world that allow their citizens to have and learn how to use firearms besides the United States. And that kind of speaks to the defense of those countries and our own rights that we have here in the United States.
And it should be noted that in those countries, violent crime is actually much less of a problem than in many other countries which do not have gun. I mean, I'm thinking about just what comes to mind right now is the attacks that they had in Mumbai in India, where they have very, very strict gun control. Even if you're able to get a gun permit, every bullet is regulated. When you have a situation where there is some sort of an attack and law-abiding citizens cannot respond, they can't defend themselves, it doesn't become a pretty
it becomes
thing.
Much more victimization. I mean, Lord knows we've had some firearm tragedies in this country, but had there been somebody in that situation who maybe had a concealed carry, maybe the situation might not have developed. I mean, there was a way to stop some of these tragedies, and it's certainly not something we always feel for the people who are involved in these, but had somebody been there that was prepped and knew what they were doing and was concealed carry, that situation would not have evolved or been as disastrous as it could have been.
And that, you know, speaking about those kind of disasters, and whether it be a school, and we spoke about free gun zones, gun-free zones, Virginia Tech, whether it be you know, what just happened in Aurora, Colorado with the shooter. First of all, let's be you know, absolutely clear here. When you're talking about criminals, they're going to have access to guns, whether it be on the books or not on the books, right? You're not going to.
Laws don't stop.
Exactly. The laws are not going to stop that person from finding a gun legally or illegally and walking in and shooting if they're deranged people.
We've seen that in Norway with the person that went on that island shooting all those children. That certainly is a very restrictive society as far as firearms, but he was able to get his hands on something. So you're absolutely right.
But the question is, how are law-abiding citizens able, or will they be able to defend themselves against this deranged shooter? Because the deranged shooter or the criminal, they're going to have access to guns regardless. When you find in places that have the strongest gun control, places like Great Britain, the criminals still have guns. It's the law-abiding citizens that don't have the guns, and that makes, and it's a great example actually that in England you have a very, very high level of violent crime. And it's not necessarily with guns, it could be with that's another point.
Sure.
I mean, even if you don't have guns, the violent crime is not only guns, it could be knives, it could be a broken bottle, it could be, there are other ways of killing people besides a gun. So it's important that law-abiding citizens are able to protect themselves and their families, because that's just about personal responsibility.
And they need to, this is, I think, comes back into the being prepared in situations that develop, be it a hurricane or a national disaster or whatever. You need to have the ability and skill to use those firearms, and that gives us, at least us in the United States, an opportunity to be a little more protected in these crisis situations. I'm always reminded, there's something going around Google now or out there in cyberspace about the Japanese invading the United States at the beginning of World War II after Pearl Harbor. And Admiral Adam Yamamoto, who was their chief statistician and educated in the United States, incidentally, a good bit of it, he said, "No, you really don't want to conquer or try to invade the Western United States, because there's more guns per capita than in anywhere else. It's a standing army of a bunch of hunters." Although
So you'd find a gun behind every blade of
but
grass.
something to that effect. I don't know how he said it in Japanese, but to that effect, absolutely. So we do have that right, and as I said earlier on, our founding fathers felt that was an important right, so that we did not end up with a tyrannical government like Hitler in Germany in 34 and 35 and 36, or some other tyrannical government, be it Stalin or whoever it may be, an Idi Amin perchance. But
it's important to point out that often these dictators, these tyrants,
first thing
they do is they create laws on the books that say that gun control, we're going to get rid of the guns, because they know that if the citizens are armed, they're not going to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Certainly, I don't want to go up against an Abrams tank, but the point is, the people in this country do have that right. And I think that our elected politicians, who do a marvelous job, even though there seems to be a lot of back and forth, they need to be aware, and I think are aware, that this is how the system should be and needs to work. There are always those people who want to get a little more control, and they can do it insidiously by making these little laws that you don't realize are there, like they maybe taxing ammunition or putting a bill in there that requires that you have so much training, or this or that or the other. That it could be something we need to constantly vigilant that our politicians are doing the right job.
I think the bottom line, though, is whether our elected officials trust us or not. Because do they trust us to protect ourselves, or do they think that the federal government or the government, whatever level it is, are going to come in and save everybody? We're going to take care of everybody, and you guys, we don't really trust you with the guns. We're going to have all the guns, and we're going to have all the power.
Well, that is a consideration, and again, it depends on how you trust, your citizenry, how your thoughts develop that way as a politician. I would just say the majority of politicians in the United States are probably not that way. But there is certainly a small group that is very vocal, that wants to take the guns and disarm the citizenry for whatever reason. And that's I don't want to be Machiavellian, but that is a thing that we need as citizens to be aware of.
I hope you're right.
We'll see what happens.
But yeah, on that note, personal responsibility is something we have to discuss. Gun safety. It's not required in this state to have a gun safety course in order to get a concealed carry permit or to own a gun, but it's definitely a good idea.
Well, I see classes that I teach. I teach at a local sportsman's club out here in North for Sales, Pittsburgh, Monroeville, Sportsman's Club, and I get a lot of students. Every month we're running beginner level handgun classes or whatever kind of courses people are interested in. I get a significant number of first-time, brand new to the concept of owning a firearm. I've had predominantly young ladies, and from the age of 80 to 15. They're constantly coming in because they want to protect themselves. And I always preface, this would be like a very beginner level course, like a first steps course, because it's short and they get to shoot and they learn about the laws of the firearm. But you stress on them that this is only a beginning course. You need to really, if you're going to carry a gun for defensive purposes, you need to practice, 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 read the laws, know the laws, and probably take some more courses to make you a little more thorough in what you're doing. Because concealed carry is critical, but you don't want to hurt yourself in the process. There are safety rules. You know, you always keep the muzzle in a safe direction. You never have your finger on the trigger. You keep firearms unloaded until you're ready to use them. People say, well, how can I defend myself in a situation like that? And I always point out that we do occasionally have accidents where people that are not as knowledgeable about the firearm as you are, a child per se, or somebody that does not have the education that you may have picked up, gets into a closet or something and finds a loaded firearm and a tragedy occurs. These are things, if you're a firearm owner, you need to be totally aware of. You know, a police officer comes in from duty, hangs his service revolver up, loaded in the closet. Little 3-year-old boy goes and gets it. You know, tragedies happen. You are responsible. If you're going to own a firearm, you're going to carry a firearm, it's your responsibility to be as versed and as thorough with that knowledge and skill as possible.
And I don't want to discourage anyone that has children from owning a firearm. I personally own multiple firearms, and I have 6 children.
I know.
And I know that when and my kid, first of all, let's take it into 2 steps. First of all, my guns are always locked up. Easily accessible if I need them, but they're always locked up.
Accessible to you.
Accessible to me. The flip side of that is training, bringing up your children and training them on gun safety, so they know if they were to happen to find a gun, they know what to do or what not to do with that gun. They're being brought up not thinking that guns are something that
taboo.
They're taboo. They're real things. They're dangerous. They're dangerous tools. And just like any other dangerous tool, if you have a handsaw, you're going to teach your kids. You know, nobody suggests that we should ban handsaws from people's houses. But if you have a handsaw at home, you have to teach your children that's a dangerous tool, and you have to be careful with it.
Exactly right, Charles. The NRA has a splendid program out there called Eddie Eagle. And it goes through at a very young age, even in the elementary level, teaching children, you know, if you see something like that, you know, leave it alone, get a responsible adult to go take care of it. Training is so critical in our urban environment, where I've had children come up to me when I was teaching. They'd have a .22 ammunition around or something they found laying on the street, and I said, you know, well, you know, that's. Thank you. And you don't want to scare them, but you want to make them aware that this is serious stuff. And you need to start at a very young age. If you're a person who has firearms, as Josh said, with his children, my children, they were aware. It wasn't something that was taboo. You make them aware. You get them out there. You let them see how it works. You let them shoot when they're old enough and capable of doing that. So
and the most dangerous situation is when you have a firearm and you have a child that's doesn't know what it is and picks it up and starts playing with it, because he doesn't know what it is or how dangerous it is, and starts to play with it, and then accidents happen.
So you need to be abundantly clear that if you're a person that's going to own a firearm, you need to make it safe. You need to have it in a situation, if you're in a house where there are people that are young or don't have the experience that you have, you need to have it in a safe of some sort, easily accessible by you, but not by them. So
what may sound strange to many people is in my house, we don't allow play guns. We don't allow squirt guns. I mean, sometimes they have it outside.
Sure.
We don't allow snap guns because to us, a gun is a very serious thing. It's not
tool.
something it's not something you play with on. It's not a television show. Not some sort of theoretical concept out there. It's a real thing that we own in order to defend ourselves, and it's not something we play with. So you know, even though we don't allow those play guns, we do have real guns in the house.
Sure.
And and all my kids understand the significance and the seriousness of a real gun.
Well, I think you see that so much in our culture too, with the various video games that are out there that are very graphic. You know, it's not the Pong that I grew up with. You know, it's much more graphic and so forth, and they don't really give you much realism other than the vicarious experience of playing the game and the visualizations that you see. But you know, it kind of removes you a little bit from what can really happen. And I think in some situations those kinds of things desensitize our children. Certainly freedom of speech is an important right, and these games may fall underneath that. But the point is, you know, desensitization of what a firearm can do through various kinds of video games or whatever is out there, does have a tendency to make people a little more frivolous. I feel very bad when you read the news and you hear about situations where there's been a young person shot here or shot there. And in Allegheny County, we see that all the time on the news. I think you see it in most urban areas. And I think part of that is the desensitization and the loss of the family. As you said, your children are aware of what they are, they're tools, they're safe, but Josh's family is different than maybe some families out there, so that people need to be more aware of their responsibility in training people to get along.
I'm sure that, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure that 99 out of 100 of those cases are done, illegally, that somebody owns a gun, purchased that gun illegally. And I don't like to say an illegal gun because a gun is a tool and it's not legal or illegal.
The gun's not illegal, it's the person using it.
Exactly. So, but I would say most of the times that you have shootings here in the county are probably done with people that shouldn't have the gun in the first place and are misusing those guns.
And I think all the legislation in the world is not going to stop that. I mean, if more laws you have, the less effective the laws become. I think we need to use the laws we have. I know the courts and the judicial system is overburdened, but we need to really think about, not letting somebody off with a hand slap for using a firearm in a crime. Firearm should be the mandated 5-year or 10-year sentence, which was already written on the books, but you don't see it coming and being used very often. So I agree that we don't need more laws. We need to use laws we have as they were written to do the job they were meant to do.
Let's give a little plug for your classes. Tell me about different types of classes that you provide, and what's involved in a class. And
okay, we teach. Like I said, I'm primarily involved with Pittsburgh and Rebel Sportsman's Club out in North Versailles, and we teach the entire spectrum of NRA classes. Plus, we have other kinds of defensive classes that take place out there. I would say the NRA courses we start out like at the first steps level. And that could be with handguns, or you can use shotguns, or there's first steps for rifle use. We do a lot of training with the Boy Scout groups, high school rifle teams. We've had them at the club. We bring youth out as frequently as possible so that they have a positive experience with firearms in a fun, developmental way. Other courses we teach at Pitcairn, there's a first steps is like a 3.5 hour course. Basic courses would be 9 to 10 hours, maybe 11 hours, depending upon what discipline you're taking. Like again, it could be pistol or rifle or shotgun. We have personal protection in the home, which is a course that really gets into what your responsibilities are in owning a firearm in your home and how to protect your home, very much along the line of being prepared for situations. We have personal protection outside the home, which is a course that I know you are involved with as an instructor also. And it teaches you what you can do outside the home to be aware of your environment at all times, because things can happen if your mind's not really on what's going on. So these are kinds of courses we teach out there.
And you have a course specifically geared for women, correct?
There is Women in Firearms course. We teach that. Not very often, but as the needs be, we can run classes like that. We also teach for the Pennsylvania Game Commission. We teach hunter education. There are defensive courses out there. Fire Institute's another institute group out there that teaches much more defensive use, actually tactical work with firearms. So we do have quite a gamut. Also the law and order. We have the police departments, several police departments involved with us, and we do the police NRA instructing groups also, which has to be taught by a NRA police qualified instructor. So.
And you've also had Boy Scout troops, and you've had college students and all.
We've had 2 or 3 different college groups. We also train. They practice at our club. The Port Authority Police, I think the University of Pittsburgh Police have practiced out at our club, as have several police departments. So we do have a full-time educational program out there, and we do even have public events where the public's invited in to do certain things at Pitcairn. Now,
you briefly mentioned different types of firearms. You mentioned a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun. For some people, a gun is a gun.
Yeah, it goes bang.
Exactly. For those listeners that are not familiar with these types of firearms, please describe.
I know that part of the purpose of this program is being prepared for situations. A handgun is a very efficient tool. It's easy to keep out of sight, but there are other firearms. The shotgun, possibly a much more efficient tool in terms of home defense. The thing with the shotgun is, if there's many BBs out of it, you're not shooting a solid projectile, although a shotgun can shoot a solid projectile. Shotgun doesn't have a tendency to blow through walls. You use a lighter shot. It's a little safer situation than the urban setting. It's very effective. It's more of a point where you might have to aim with a rifle or a handgun. So it's probably, in terms of a self-defense or home defense tool, I would say the shotgun would be my choice.
I guess it would depend on what environment you're in.
Exactly.
And obviously, if you're in a farm and you're shooting, it would make sense to have a rifle to shoot long
Absolutely.
distance. If you're in an urban environment, a
shotgun,
handgun
would be
sense.
much more efficient in the urban setting. The nice thing about the shotgun, as I said before, is the penetration of the projectile. You have to realize when you shoot, you're throwing something out there and you can't bring it back. So you need to have a tool that's not going to hurt somebody in the next room or 2 rooms away or across the street. You need to always be aware, where's that firearm going and what's beyond it.
You always emphasize you have to know what's beyond your target, because that could also be affected.
Sure.
I have to bring up what happened in New York City, because that blows my mind. Police officers, trained police officers, for lack of a better word or a better phrase, went on a shooting spree, and there was an assailant, and they basically shot off all these rounds. They managed to get the assailant, but they also managed to hit lots of bystanders that were around. What are your thoughts? I'm just curious.
Well, for whatever reason, was never a police officer. Fortunately, I have not had to live through a stressful situation like they live through every day. But the point is well taken that you need to know your target. You need to know what's beyond. Shooting 50 or 60 9mm bullets at an assailant, I realize the pressure and the adrenaline and so forth, but you got to realize beyond that assailant what's down the street and where if the bullets bounce, where are they going to go? A ricochet can cause as much damage as anything else. So they need to be more trained. They need to get and with budgets the way they are in the cities, with state legislators cutting back on funding, police officers, police departments, and so forth don't get the training necessary that they need as much as they really deserve to have it, because stress is something that you just can't go out and experience. You need to have experienced numerous times, and with that stress comes a better sense of how you're going to handle the firearm, I think.
And it's very disconcerting to me to know that there are departments out there that require their officers to shoot 6 rounds a year
to be qualified. For insurance purposes.
And they're a lot less qualified than our people that are shooting on a regular basis. So it's a little bit obviously they need as much training as we have to give them as much training as is necessary in order to keep them proficient.
And that's where a well-armed citizenry also comes into play. That as you said before, it might take that police officer 10 minutes to get to your house when you call and there's an emergency taking place. You need to get in touch with 911 when it is an emergency, but you also need to be protecting yourself in the interim time it takes for them to get there, if they're able to get there. As understaffed as some departments are, they might not be able to get to you. They might be on some other situation that requires their time. So
and policies are changing, depending on the department. But it used to be almost across the board that when you had an active shooter situation, that the police would show up at the scene and they wouldn't even be allowed to go in and engage that active shooter. They would wait for SWAT to come in.
Yes.
So, until I know that many departments, they're changing their policies and they're telling their officers to go, even if they're one officer, to go in and try to engage that active shooter. But, at least the way it was, and it may still be in many departments, is that even if the police show up, if they know there's an active shooter on the scene, they're going to wait for the so-called professionals to show up and deal with it.
Well, the SWAT team certainly probably would have a little more opportunity to be trained and go through a little more defensive training than the regular foot patrolman. But yeah, it's a tough situation. That's a tough call, and that comes back to the person who's defending their home. If you do have a situation and it's a shoot situation, heaven forbid, but if it does come to that and you have to use deadly force, you need to be on the phone with that police department and stay on that phone with them the whole time the situation's taking place. when the police department gets there, you need to realize that they have the situation in hand and put the firearm down. Don't be standing there with a firearm in your hand when the police department shows up, because they don't know what the situation is. They're there to get the situation under control, and you need to rely on them to do that once they have gained access and are in the situation. You certainly would not, you call the police department and not be standing there with a handgun in your hand when the police department arrives, because they don't know if you're the good guy or the bad guy. So you need to take care of that.
Assuming the assailant's already been neutralized.
Well, we hope that the assailant's neutralized, exactly. Right. If you're not and you're barricaded in your room, keep yourself armed until the police tell you it's a safe situation.
Just make sure the police know where you are and what's going on.
Exactly. That's where that cell phone comes in so handy. A set of keys so the police officer can get into the house, that would be a good idea too. You can get that out to them somehow. But those are things that we do cover in these personal protection courses. And I mean, they're 13, 14-hour classes, so it's not something that you and I can talk about in a TV show that we could really cover all the situations. But certainly, you need to trust the police, but you need to protect yourself also.
And I might mention, you mentioned personal protection as being an aspect of preparedness in a man-made or natural disaster. But in addition to that, obviously, there's the hunting aspect as well. If you have a situation where you need to forage for your own food, hunting comes into play as well.
We don't want to, we always seem to get confused. The first thing is we have the rights to own firearms. That's based on our Second Amendment Constitution. Hunting is a privilege in the United States. Fortunately, in Pennsylvania, through the efforts of the Pennsylvania Game Commission and other places in the United States, through people like Teddy Roosevelt, who started the National Park System, we have the ability to go hunting in the United States. It's a lifetime skill. It takes a lot of training. Like at the time, you got to be physically able to do it. But in a situation where there's a national disaster and you're trying to provide food for your family, you certainly need to take some courses in hunting and find out what's involved. In Pennsylvania, you have to take a course to buy a hunting license. It's the Pennsylvania Game Commission runs that. So, but again, hunting is I've done it all my life, but it's a lifetime skill. It's a lifetime practice. It's not something you can learn just by reading a book. You have to actually go out and participate. But there are courses out there available, even as I speak.
Bill, if you're willing to stick with me after the break, I think we could do some demonstrations maybe, and we can wrap this up. What do you think?
Well, thanks, Josh, for having me here today, and I don't know how much I can show you with demonstrations, but we'll certainly stick around and talk to you after the break.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Well, welcome back. We're going to talk about a couple of things in terms of concealed carry. Again, this would be a 14, 15-hour class if you were taking it. Concealed is very important. Some considerations you need to think about if you're going to purchase a firearm for concealed carry. You need to use something that you're going to be comfortable with. It's not too heavy. You're comfortable shooting it. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It's going to maybe make you unsure or maybe cause you to flinch. You need a caliber that you're comfortable with. You start with a smaller caliber and work up. For defensive purposes, 22 is good to practice with, but you would probably need a heavier caliber, 9mm 38 special, or even higher than that. But that would be something you would learn through taking an NRA course or through your training. We have today with us a blue gun, and when you're carrying, you don't want to be people realizing you're carrying. You want to not print. You don't want the people to see that, oh, this guy might be carrying a gun. We did talk about open carry earlier. But this would be for concealed carry, where you would need to have the special concealed carry permit, which you can get down here in Allegheny County at the courthouse. It takes a little while. There's a picture taken, and the process is not very complicated, but the county does an excellent job in getting those out to you. You have to be a citizen in good repute. You can't be a convicted felon or somebody like that, obviously, to carry a concealed firearm. You can't own a firearm if you're a convicted felon. We're talking about printing. You want to be, if you're carrying a firearm, you want something that's light enough that's easy to conceal. I brought today an inert firearm. It's a blue gun. We've taped it up for video purposes. It is a model of the MD Springfield, and we will use it. It is just plastic. There's no ammunition for practice purposes. For practicing, it's good to use an inert gun, a blue gun, or a red gun, such as this. It's very important. There are many places you can carry a gun concealed, But what you need to be careful of is where is that muzzle pointed. Now we have a target here. We don't want to be pointing at something we don't intend to be shooting. Oftentimes you'll see people with guns and the muzzle's floating around and people are being swept by it. That is a no-no. You have to watch yourself too. If you're carrying in a concealed situation, there are many things you can buy. There are pocket holsters. I happen to have Josh's on me here. This is a belt holster, substantial. They're made to fit your firearm specifically. And there are other kinds. There are purse holsters, which are a little more complicated to use, but for street carry, purse holder is acceptable. There's fanny packs. There's any number of different kinds of things you can carry a firearm in. Your pocket would be sufficient if the firearm is small enough. And of course, again, you don't want to see it. This gun's a little large for concealed carry, but most people wouldn't realize I was carrying a firearm with this on. Jackets, sweaters, anything that helps you conceal. You could also carry the firearm in your belt, such as that, possibly in a concealed way with a jacket on would be successful. There are also leather holsters. You can buy their shoulder holsters. You're only limited by your pocketbook and what's comfortable for you. Let's go through. I'm going to set Josh's holster down here on the floor for a second. If you're in a situation you need to practice, you don't want to go out the first time you've ever carried and not have practice with your firearm. It's where a blue gun like this or a red gun like this is very helpful because it's inert. The only way it can hurt me is if I drop it on my foot. There's no ammunition, live ammunition, or anything else. If you were going to use a gun like this, you need to realize that when you bring the gun up, you keep your other hand out of the way till you bring the gun up, and then bring your hand to it. You notice also my finger is off the trigger until I'm ready to actually fire. You keep your thumbs on a semi-automatic like this, you keep your thumbs pointed forward. If you put your thumb back here, the gun will possibly injure you because the slide would come back. These are all things, again, you would learn in more detail in a course. Again, keeping this hand out of the way as you bring the gun up and coming to the gun, keeping your thumbs forward, finger off the trigger until you're ready to engage. This would be a proper isosceles stand. My feet are about shoulder width apart. The gun, my arms aren't hyperextended. They're forced out this way. If I stand this way, maybe it helps. You can see how my arms are. And then the gun's pointed, you bring it to target and shoot. That would be one way of shooting. Another thing you could do in terms of defensive shooting is there's something called the Weaver stance. Again, this is something you would learn on a much longer course. Weaver stance is more sort of like your non-dominant foot forward, and then you would bring the gun up, and that would be the position you would want to be in. That would be the Weaver stance. That's another detective professional way that you can shoot. We talk about using barricades and so forth when you're shooting. You must always be careful in shooting a semi-automatic, which this would be, versus a revolver, because the semi-automatic kicks the cartridges out. If you can't the gun, which means turning the gun sideways a little bit, which is somewhat permissible, but not totally radical like you see on TV, but you can cant the gun a little bit depending upon your dominant eye. That's something else that comes into play in shooting. You've got to learn which eye is dominant. You should shoot with both eyes open. If you don't shoot with both eyes open, you don't know if the bad guy's running up here to get you. So you need to keep both eyes open when you shoot. And again, that's a practice issue that you would take and practice over and over and over again. It's permissible with modern firearms. You can dry fire them. There are ammunition that's not ammunition, but it saves the firing pin. You can buy those. But you can also dry fire most modern firearms so that you could practice. So if you ever do dry fire practice, you need to practice with no ammunition in the room. Okay, so but you can, with most modern firearms, you can dry fire, and that's the best way to get used to getting your position correct and going from there. Shoot with both eyes open, learn your breathing. Remember, it's sight picture. You focus on the front sight. You can't focus on everything at the same time. The front sight is what you focus on. Trigger squeeze is critical. You don't jerk or yank. You just squeeze and the gun goes off. These are all things that you need to realize are important aspects to being a good shooter. Practice, practice, practice. Dry fire, just cheap and easy way to do it. Again, no live ammunition in the environment, and practice when there's other people around in the quietness of your home. Other things you need to think about are after you've shot, to follow through. You follow the shot to the target and go from there. If you are shooting in a situation, there's things we call cover and concealment. Cover and concealment are two issues that come up in home defense a lot. Concealment would mean you're hidden. That could be anything, like a couch or a doorway or something that would hide you. A cardboard box will hide you. It won't stop a bullet, so you need to be aware of that. That's critical. Concealment hides you, but it does not necessarily protect you. Cover tends to protect you. That might be a file cabinet or something dense enough and big enough to keep a projectile from getting to you. Car door is not cover. It's concealment. You can shoot most modern revolvers or pistols through a car door. So you see these things on TV, the guy's hiding behind the car door. The bad guys shoot right through the car door, so you need to be aware of that. Other positions, there is a squatting position you can use. This is sort of an isosceles, but you're lowering your size. You're keeping your hand, if you shoot one-handed, keep your other hand over your vitals. These are all techniques and skills that you would learn, again, in a defense program that would help you be a shooter. Things other than I need to think of. Josh is standing off screen here, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything he would like me to talk about. We're at about the 10-minute stage now.
I think we could discuss maybe other stances you just went on. But there is a kneeling and a prone position which could be used in certain circumstances.
It lessens the size of you, so it's a better way. And I'm not going to, with my old knees, get into a kneeling position, but certainly these are all different ways that you should practice to get your efficiency in shooting better. Again, realizing that if you cant the gun or you block it up against the doorstop, there is a chance that the ammunition being shot, the expanded case could fall back and jam your gun. So you need to keep all these things in consideration. You need to practice, practice, practice. Take some good courses somewhere. There are many different schools around that teach them. We do them at Pittsburgh, but there are other great places around. You can go on the NRA website, which is nrahq.org, and on that website you can find out any and all handgun, firing gun, rifle, shotgun courses that are within the area. If you're interested, that would be, again, one I would recommend, nrahq.org. That's the NRA website. Josh?
Do you want to do the Pitcairn also? Do you know their website?
Pitcairn Monroeville Sportsman's Club. If you're interested in us, there are other good clubs all around, but ours is pmsconline.com. That's Pitcairn Monroeville Sportsman's Club. We're out in the eastern suburbs in North Versailles. But there are other good clubs all around the Allegheny County area, and I would recommend that you look at those also.
Now, you don't have to own a firearm in order to take these courses, especially the first steps you can go on.
At our club, we have firearms available at no cost to you. You can borrow our firearms. We wrote an NRA grant and got firearms that are low caliber, easy to use.
Now, one of the things when you're purchasing a firearm that you want to keep in mind is something that if you're purchasing it in order to carry, concealed carry, you want to purchase something which is something that you're actually going to carry. So people look at these huge firearms, and those are not necessarily the ones that they would be carrying on a regular basis. They're heavy and they're big, and it might look pretty, but it's not something that you're going to carry.
You want something you're going to use, be familiar with, be comfortable with. Size and fit to you is critical. I'd rather have you be able to shoot a .22 accurately than miss me with a .357 Magnum. So that's the importance of you developing the skills and practicing. Not that the .22 is a great defensive round, but it's good to learn on, and then you can move up to the higher calibers if you wish.
As far as sights, there's also laser sights that are available.
Yes, there are laser sights that are very useful. This would be an iron-sighted handgun, but laser sights, telescopic sights on rifles, bead sights on shotguns, there are any number of different electronic sights that are available to you on the market today. Several good gun stores in the area. All you need to do is go on, search Google, search Aces down in Washington County, Braverman's in Wilkinsburg, Anthony Arms out in West Mifflin are three that I use frequently. But there are other very good firearms dealers, and you're only limited by your access to a computer to find guns online.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming under the short notice. If you want to just step aside, we're going to demonstrate a little laser here. And this is one of the things that's used in a laser sight in order to show that you are on target. And I appreciate everybody coming today. Anyone who wants to comment, there's going to be an email showing up at the preppereport@gmail.com. You're welcome to give in your suggestions and comments. And we hope to have more shows to bring you this important, vital information about preparedness. And again, we are the only show nationally that shows specifically geared to the concept of natural disasters, man-made disasters, and emergency preparedness. Thank you again for watching us. My name is Josh Wander. I'm your host, and I want to thank Bill Chessman, our guest today.